For those that are joining us for the first time, this is our Friday edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. This is our open Q&A session. So the goal of our session here is that if you are learning Salesforce, you're going through Trailhead, you're working on a super badge, you have an issue at work, whatever it is, if there's some kind of Salesforce technology related question that you have, or any question for that matter, this is a live forum where you can ask that question and hopefully we'll be able to help you out. The only thing that I ask is that if you do have a question, use the little raise hand button there. That way, we kind of get everybody in an order and, we'll go through the questions one at a time. If you are also not aware, there are several Military Trailblazer office hour sessions. This was the first that was started several years ago, but we have since grown to having a Monday session, off the record chatter, which meets every other week. We have a Trailhead Tuesday session that meets every week. We have David Navaz's career and branding session. And this is breaking news. We don't have details yet. This will be shared soon, but there will be a developer focused session kicking off on Thursdays as well. So for anybody interested in getting started with development, learning Apex, Lightning Web Components, that kind of thing, we're going to be kicking that off soon. So that being said, let's open it up. Does anybody have any questions or specific topics that they would like to go through for today? Soli, I see your hand raised. You got.
Yeah, I'll take one. If you don't mind, may I share my screen?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. All right, so this basically for any lookup field, what I'm trying to figure out here is so let's just say I'm random data entry person and I go to add a record.
Yep.
So when you click here, I can see recent, but I can't see the full list. So like there's not a scroll. And if I don't really know how to spell somebody's name, I think my instinct is going to be, oh, that player doesn't exist. I'm going to add a new player and thus I'll start creating duplicate records, that kind of thing. So what I'm wondering is how do we expand this list so that we can see all the people, or if I don't know how to spell a name or something like that. So what I'm envisioning is, a scroll bar here so that I can see, in this case, it would be player data. Or, if you think about a contacts field, is there a way to do that?
I don't believe so, but let's take a quick pause there. Does anybody have any thoughts on a way to kind of expand that search so that you can actually see more records and not just the recent records? Yeah, I feel like this is one of those things that used to be a lot easier with Classic. I feel like there was like that intermediate screen where you could type something in, click search, and it would give you like the full search screen. With Lightning, I don't think there's a great way to get around that. Again, anybody have any experience with that as far as like giving the user more visibility in that search box? I mean, short of like building your own interface with like Lightning Web Components or anything like that. Yeah.
So I'm not sure how to do it, but I know in our org, when I go in and search for something and it doesn't pop up, there's an option to show all results in addition to new account.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Let's here, let me do this. I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, so I hang on just a second. I don't know where that went. I found that I found online on Google, there's a way that you can create a custom field that says all, so that if you want to see everything, you can click all, and then it will show you a list of all. But it's something you have to do on the background.
Yeah, let's just take a look at this real quick. So in your case, it's on a custom object, but let's just see for.
Yeah, if you just use contacts as an example.
Yeah, let me just make sure I have a bunch of accounts in here. So let's just say that there was an account that I haven't looked up yet, like University of Arizona. So if I went into a contact and I was trying to create a new contact and I was going to select an account record, how would you get to the point where you know what to search for? And that's not what I'll do. So if I did like AR, show all results for AR, and then we'll come back with University of Arizona. But to your point, you almost have to know what to search for before you can search.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
If you didn't know what name to search for, you were unsure of the spelling of a name. as kind of goes with any kind of search you're doing, sometimes less is more. So in my case, like just putting AR, that'll bring back Arizona. But if I put in like Arizona, like I didn't know how to spell it, it's not going to bring that back, right? But beyond that, just kind of putting in what you do know and then clicking on that search or show all results for AR. I don't think there's much better option. Again, without doing any kind of crazy customization or building a custom UI. So I know that's not a great answer. And again, I'll open it up if anybody has any other thoughts there. But I think that's about as close as you're going to get.
Yeah, I can share the one result that sounds like what I'm sorry, who is that chimed in? Because she's like a wealth of knowledge also.
I spoke up, but I don't know about the wealth of knowledge thing.
Oh, you are, as far as I'm concerned, you are. So this is what I found is that you can display all records if you go through these steps. So there's a default value of all, so that when you're searching, um, yeah. So it's a workaround, and there's a whole lot to it. I don't want to take up everybody's time. So I mean,
Yeah.
I found a workaround for it, but yeah, I thought it would be easier.
And I guess, with the search mechanism, I think it makes a lot of sense if you know what you want to search for. Like in the case of a contact who works at an account, you could definitely search for the account name. You probably know what the account name is. But I'm just trying to think like other lookups you might have where you have no idea what that relationship is going to be until you actually look at the list and you want to select one. In that case, yeah, I don't think there's a great way to see the full list unless you just go to that tab and look at the list view, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, just with contacts, I think that's going to wind up creating a lot of duplicates. Because if I don't see it, maybe I'm going to say, "Oh, okay, it's not in there," and I'm going to create a new contact, and then I can see how that could create a lot of duplicates in the long run, especially if it's a strange spelled name.
Yeah, no, that being said, there are mechanisms for preventing the creation of duplicates that we could talk through as well. So that if you did try to create it, it would see that it already existed and then it would, throw that back. Um, but of course, that would only work if you did know the spelling and you tried to create something that was a duplicate and it didn't find it on the search, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, as you go through it, Sully, if you find a better solution, or if you give that one a try that you just brought up on the screen, let us know how that goes if you come up with anything
Right.
better.
Yeah, we'll do.
All right. Any other questions on that? I know that's not a great definitive answer, but I think working within the limitations of the tools we have here, I think that's the best we might be able to do. All right. Well, that being said, let's open it back up. Anybody have any other questions or topics that they would like to go through? Yeah, I see a hand up.
Hi, Bill. Hi, everyone. My name is Shavana. I'm new to this office hours and
Yeah.
just really appreciative for this forum. I am basically trying to create a portfolio. I'm in a situation where I'm on the job hunt in the Salesforce ecosystem. So right now I'm focusing on sales, and I am very new to Flow and taking a lot of Trailhead modules, any type of working sessions I can attend virtually. It is not an easy thing for me to learn right now.
Yeah.
So right now, what I'm trying to do to get to the point is I have an opportunity object,
Mhm.
and when the stage pick list value equals closed one, I would like for a project to be created automatically
Yeah.
using an automation.
Yeah.
And so what I did in my org is I downloaded the app called PMT by Salesforce Labs, the project management tool, because I'm trying to use that project and not create a custom object and figure out all the fields. I'm not trying to recreate the wheel.
Yeah. So the issue that you're having or the trouble that you're running into is the actual flow so that
The
when an opportunity is
flows.
closed one, it creates that project.
Great, right.
Okay.
So I got a flow going. What's happening is the project's created, it looks beautiful. All the fields are being, able to be utilized by, the end user. What's happening is if I go back into the opportunity
Mhm.
and I just update an amount, it creates another duplicate project.
Okay. So there's a couple things that we could look at there that I think might be causing this problem. So just for those that might not be 100% familiar with flows, if you don't mind, I'm just going to kind of start at the beginning here. So I'm going to go into my sandbox here. We already have a project object created. I think we might have done this in one of our previous sessions. So let's just say that exact same use case you have when you close one an opportunity, we want to make sure that that creates a project record. So I'm going to go to the gear icon, go to setup. In our quick find, I'm going to search for flow. We are going to create a new record triggered flow. And we're going to assume that in our org, we're never going to create an opportunity in a closed state. So it's always going to be just when a record is updated. We're not going to worry about the creation part of it. When I look here, I'm going to say when a record is updated, and the record type is going to be opportunity. And we're going to add some requirements in here. So we're going to say when all these conditions are met, and the condition is going to be when the stage name is equal to closed one. Now, I'm going to ignore everything else on the screen for right now, and I'm going to show you where I think the issue is, and then we'll come back to with a fix. All right. So right now, all we have is a flow that's going to be triggered every single time an opportunity is updated and the stage name is equal to closed one. So what I want to have happen when that is the case, we're going to do a create records, and we're going to say create new project record. This is going to be one using separate resources and literals, and the type that we're going to create is project. Okay. And we're going to keep it simple. All we're going to do is set the project name equal to the opportunity name. And the way that we get to the opportunity name in a record triggered flow is this $record global variable that we have. And we just type in name, and we got opportunity name. I don't think we have any other fields that we really care about here. I don't know what we did in the last week that it might throw an error, but let's just see if we just set the name and that's it. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to call this auto create project on up closed one, and save and activate. And let's see if I broke anything. Okay, so we have an opportunity. We're going to create a brand new one called, I have the, I think, did we do something with like the automatic naming? I can't remember. All right, so let's just use one that we already have here. So if I were to take this express logistics standby generator opportunity that we have here and edit this and change the state. Of course, that one's already closed one. Let's do this one. This one's perception analysis. Edit this. And if I change that to closed one and save, what I would expect to happen is that saves. And if I go over to our projects, there's my express logistics SLA project. Now, the problem that you're running into, and I think that we'll be able to easily demonstrate this, is that if I were to go back to Express Logistics SLA, and let's just say I'm like, oh, that was the wrong close date. Let me fix this to be the 28th, not the 228th, but the 28th, and save. I'm guessing that if I go to projects, I'm going to have two of those now. Okay. So the issue is that if you look in your flow, if you go into your start block here, you'll notice that there's a radio button at the very bottom that says when to run this flow for updated records. By default, it's going to be set to every time a record is updated and meets the conditions. So that means the very first time that this is closed one and you save it, it's going to run. But any other change you make, whether it has anything to do with the stage name or not, it's going to run through this flow and keep creating projects. So to prevent that, you just want to make sure that you check this here where it says only when a record is updated to meet this requirement, meaning that when this record was saved, did we set the stage name equal to closed one in that specific transaction? And if we did, then run the flow. But subsequent transactions, like changing the close date or some other kind of field, those are not going to trigger the logic to run. In that case, it'll just run the one time. Okay. Make sense?
Thank you so much, Bill.
Yeah. Now, not to over-engineer this, but you could definitely select this option here. Something to keep in the back of your mind, there's a couple different ways you can do this as well. We can say it every time the record is updated to meet the requirements, and you might do something like this. This would be like another variation where we can say stage named is changed equals true. Putting that line with that radio button would essentially be the same as just having that first one with that second radio button, more or less. But just something to consider. But I would recommend going that route for sure. All right, let me stop my share. Let the folks in that I forgot to let in. Sorry. And yeah, any other questions on that before we go to the next question? Just as a quick side note, Steve Sanders, I made you a co-host. If you could be so kind as to manage the door. All right, so Todd, I see you have a hand up. What do you got?
I'll share my screen here real quick. I have just a basic question here about a particular flow I've been working on. And my question is can you see my screen?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So my question is here, this is an approval process on this one. I can actually click into it. So it's set up to an approval process, but my question is if I put something after this in the flow doesn't stop at the action, does it? It runs through, like if I added get records behind it, it would not stop at the approval, right? And it would run through the get records too.
So let me say that back to you. So in that branch that you're looking at right there, when you get to that action that says approval contract returned and signed, if after that you put a get records, yes, it's going to go through that action. And then the immediate next action would be the get records, and we keep going down that branch until it hit an end block. Yes.
Okay, so if I wanted to do something after this action, I should create another record triggered flow based off what this action does then.
I want to say yes. If you want something to be triggered based on whatever they do as part of that action, or that action is being done, then yes. Or you could put a decision block after that, and then maybe check to see what was changed or what was updated in that action, and then keep going from there.
Not like you do.
Steve, you got a point?
Oh, that was all I had. Thanks. You answered my question.
Yeah. Steve, did you have a comment on that? I saw you came off mute.
No, I didn't.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? If I'm going down the right path there. Like I said, I think if you have an element in your flow that's making a change to another record, if you want something to happen based on what that change is, then yes, a record triggered flow on that record object type would do the trick. Or you can have other elements within your flow that do a decision block, see what happened during that previous step, and then, do the logic within that same flow.
Yeah, like I could create a custom checkbox field and then check and see if it was checked. Sort of thing for the decision. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of nuance as to which direction you might go. If the only time that this action is going to happen is as part of your flow, then yeah, you could probably build that logic directly in the flow. If that action can happen as part of your flow, but then also through some other actions somewhere else in the application, then maybe that would be a good situation where you'd want to build the flow directly on that, like that object that's being changed as part of that action.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe a new flow because the approval won't happen immediately. It could take like up to a week to run the credit check that's approving. So I was thinking maybe a new record triggered flow off of that would be better. So it because of the time gap.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Sandy, I see your hand up.
Hi. So do you know if there is a way to like get file records and filter them a specific way so that you only see certain ones on a screen flow? I'm trying different methods, but I don't know if I'm just overthinking it, or if I'm tired, or if it's just one of those things that because it's like this whole standard objects and you can't really customize certain aspects of it or even access it, and maybe it's just beyond the way it's built and I would have to do something that is a new skill. So essentially, I was trying to do a get records because I know you've got the file itself and then technically a junction object for linking it to the record.
Yeah.
And then, of course, to make it more complicated, I have the object that I'm trying to look at a different set of related objects, and then I want to access all of the files on those objects.
All right, let me say this back to you here. This is a screen-based flow that you're working with here, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the screen-based flow, you want to be able to select. You're doing a get, and then you want to display files, right?
So I've got a screen-based flow, and I'm reviewing related records to that specific object or record, essentially.
So you have like an account record that's selected, and you want to display all the files for like that account.
One more removed. I have, like, if I have an account and I'm looking at all related contacts, I want all the files that are related to each of those contacts, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So
okay. So you have an account, you got all the related contacts, and you want to be able to see all the files related to all of those contacts.
Yes.
So is your question, how would I query or do a get records on the files? But you have to do it like with like where the or the related record is equal to that list of contacts that you have there.
Right.
Okay. I have a theory on how we could do this, but before I do that, does anybody else have any thoughts on the best way that, or a way that you might accomplish this?
Did you use in operator, won't we, Bill?
Yep, that's what I was thinking. The in operator.
Yeah, I've got a video I made for someone else, like a similar use case. I'll post the link. I guess,
Yeah,
for, like,
that'd be great. So here, let me share my screen, Sandy, if you want to take a look at this. So essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our flows, and let's just create a new screen-based flow. So if we go to screen flow, next, let's just do, well, first of all, let's just see if we have a record that we can use here. So essentially, I want to make sure that we have an account. I want to make sure that that account has some related contacts. I'm going to add another one here for Bill Bilberson. Okay, and then under each one of those contacts, we should have a file. And I'm thinking that, do I not have files enabled on this thing? Okay. So let's go to edit object. Actually, should be able to just edit the page, right? So let's add files on here. We'll throw just a couple files up there, and then we'll go from there. Well, actually, well, yeah, I think that's. I don't think there's anything special about files. I was going to say we could probably do it with some other object. Well, let's just stick with that.
I just know that that's an obvious one that has at least more than one related one without having to create a new one.
Yeah, so I'm going to do related list single. If I don't even know if this will work if we don't have files turned on, but anybody felt that performance has been awful in Salesforce for the last week?
Yep.
So files.
That was me.
All right, so I'm going to add that related list here. We'll activate this and assign as org default. I'm going to pause my share just to make sure that I have some files teed up here just to use for this. Then we'll get started with building this flow. Well, actually, I tell you what, let's just get started building the flow and we can do that part in a minute. All right, so this is going to be a screen-based flow. First thing I'm going to do, let's just assume that this is going to be sitting on the account record, right? So we're looking at an account and we want to get all the files related to that account. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw over a new resource here, which is going to be a variable with the name record ID. That way, when we're looking at an account, it'll pass in the record ID. Now, I do know that we can also pass in the entire record, but for right now, we're just going to pass in the record ID. The second thing that we're going to do, we pass in the record ID for whatever account we're looking at. The next step would be to do a get records. We're going to say get all related contacts. So we're going to get our contacts where the account ID is equal to whatever account that we're currently looking at. And we want to make sure that we get them all. All right. Now, the next piece, you think we should be able to go into and just do like a get all files related to those contacts. So let's just start down that path and we'll see where we get stopped here. Right. So let's just say get all files for these contacts. And we're going to say the object is there a files object? What is the
It's
name of the
a content document, I think. Or content document link, I think is the junction object between files and that.
Okay. So let's just go with that. We'll say get all content document links related to these contacts. So what would be great is if you could do something like linked entity ID, which I believe that should be the ID. That's like a polymorphic field for whatever is linked, this content document is linked to.
Yes.
So we say that is equal to, and then you have to set a variable. But then you notice you have these in and not ins. So if you select in, I believe that this has to be a collection variable. So let's see what it's going to ask us to create here. So ideally, it would be a variable of type. No.
You got to loop through first, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you collect.
Yeah. So I'm gonna create the variable so I don't have to recreate this get record. So let's just call this contact IDs. Make this type text, allow multiple values. So now that we have that, we're going to get all records. So assuming that we had a list called contact IDs that contain the IDs of all of our contacts, this would query all the content document links. But what we need to do is actually populate that contact IDs with the IDs of the contacts we found.
No.
So was there a question there? Okay. So what I'm going to do is in between these, when we got our contacts, we definitely want to put stuff in like a decision, like did we find contacts? We need to handle that gracefully, all that good stuff. Let's forget about that for right now. And let's just assume that we found like a couple contacts, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to add a loop. And for my loops, when I create them in a flow, I always give them name of for each contact. We're going to loop through our contacts from the get all related contacts. First to last, doesn't matter. And all we're going to do for each of these, we're going to have an assignment block. And we're going to say add contact ID to collection. And we're going to say, where's the thing? Contact IDs, add. And then it's the current item from the loop for each contact dot ID. Okay. Click done. So in theory, for whatever account that we're looking at, it's going to get all the related contacts. It's going to loop through each of them. And for every contact that it finds, it's going to add an entry into our contact IDs collection that we created. And then once that's all done, it's going to get to this point where it queries the content document linked object where the linked ID is in that list of contact IDs. And it's going to get them all. And then in theory, and this is where we can kind of test this out, we should be able to have a screen here that is called show me all the links. And I don't know how, yeah, question?
Your variable was a text collection variable.
Say again?
That your variable that you created, that was that you did a text collection.
Correct. Yeah, just to hold the contact IDs. Correct.
Use a data table here, Bill. You can use a record collection.
That's a good point. Thank you, Steve. Let's see. This would be data table.
Data table.
Links. Source collection should be our contact document links. And then we should be able to, just want to do view only. And as far as the columns, we should be able to select, I don't know, just keep it simple here. So we'll do ID, just to prove that we're able to find anything. We'll do ID, linked entity ID, and something else. Share type.
So we'll wait till you're done.
Yeah. So let's just do done. Let's save this. Save. Let's do activate. And in theory, I should be able to save this thing, go back to here. I wanted to go to my contact page layout. I want to add our files. That's what I had started doing earlier. So let's add the files so that we can put a test file on here. I think I'm in the wrong spot, but let's go with that. Save this. Okay, so that's saving here. Now I'm going to go back to this, give this a quick refresh. And while that's refreshing, I'm going to pause my share and grab that file that I was mentioning earlier that we can use for testing. Something that's not like my bank statement or something like that. Let's see. Okay. So color. All right. So I have files here. I should be able to just drag up my Resource Hero logo. Done. Okay. So we got one file on Jack. And if we go to Bill Bilberson, I should be able to throw another file in here. Let's see if it lets me put a GIMP file. It does. Okay. So now if I go to my account, we have a screen-based flow, but we haven't added it onto the account yet. So I'm going to go to my account. I will go to gear icon, edit page. And in theory, we should have a flow component that we can add here, and then we can add that flow. I'm sorry, did I talk over somebody?
You're not sharing again.
There we go. Sorry. I'm just trying to be careful and not show the low balance in my account statements, you know.
Understood.
Here we go. So now we're on the account record. I'm going to throw a flow component over on the right. We can select which flow. This is going to be show document links on account. We definitely want to pass the record ID into this because it'll find just the links for this account that we're looking at. So we'll save this and activate. Assign as org default. Sure. Okay. And let's see if we blew it up. There you go.
All right.
So, I mean, it's ugly. You can't see the names in them. You could do some stuff to try to get to that point where you can see the names, like another in type thing.
Right. Well, and I guess that was kind of like the next question. So, like, you need to do the content document link because that's technically that junction object, and content document is the file itself. Like, I think I got stuck with how to kind of be able to get to that then too. And it's like I've done it with like non-standard objects, but because of the fact that I can't go and create custom fields on a file,
yeah,
it was like I just kind of kept getting stuck. And
yeah, I think essentially what you might have to do, yeah, walk and chew gum here, content. What I think you might need to do is just do 2 loops where you get the contacts, you loop through them to create a list of IDs, and then get the contact document links. And then from there, you might need to loop through those, create a list of IDs, and then query the content documents. What I was just going to try to do here, I just wanted to see if there's any shortcut if you could just query directly against that contact document. But
yeah, I mean, essentially, I was trying to take advantage of some of those like PDF viewers and stuff so that a user would have the ability to like review this thing and also see what file is related to see if everything matches up.
Yeah. So I think you might be in like the position where you're gonna have to do 2 of the queries and 2 loopings to get the IDs.
Right.
So.
Which is fine, but for whatever reason, my brain was just not working on the day I was trying to figure it out, how to manipulate those 2 different things.
Yeah.
It seemed like every route I was going was wrong.
Well, once you have a chance to kind of build that out, let me know where you end up. So I think the 2 biggest takeaways from what we just talked through is one, that in operator. I don't want to say that it's new. I think it's been out for a bit. But if you haven't played with that, definitely something worth playing with.
Okay.
And then to the point of how you would display the data within that table, to Stephen's point, the data table component is pretty slick. There was once upon a time, not too long ago, that you would have to do some like crazy HTML table manipulation and stuff, or you would have to use something from unofficial SF. But now the data table is vanilla out of the box, Salesforce Flow. So it's pretty awesome
Yeah.
to have that.
Yeah, one thing I don't like about the unofficial SF one is how it has the set pixels for each column, whereas at least the standard one kind of adjusts a little bit with your screen. Not perfect, but
Yeah.
the other one doesn't at all. So you might have to scroll, and because you never know what size someone's screen is. So that's why I didn't really care for that one much, but I appreciate the new data table.
Yeah, the new data table is great until you try to display currency and other type of things, and then it kind of falls flat a little bit. But yes, it is wonderful, wonderfuler than what it used to be.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah. Nancy, you've had your hand up for a bit. Yeah. I think you're on mute.
Here I am. You can hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
All right, so this is the same flow I was working on.
Yeah.
Are you seeing this screen now?
I'm seeing your Alvin Regional Medical Center.
Okay, so I want them to be able to click this button and then create a parent or child.
Yeah.
When they click it and go to create a parent, then this would be the originating opportunity. I want it to say this parents, I mean, this, the new parent, the new opportunity should be listed here.
Right.
And I'm also not getting the account name to reproduce as well.
Let's take a look at your flow.
This is the flow.
Okay, so I definitely remember this now. So we're starting the screen-based flow when you click the button. We're getting the current opportunity record. We're asking the user, do you want to create a parent or a child? They're going to select parent. In that decision, it's going to say, what did they check? And when we say parent, we're going to go to the left. Then I'm assuming on that screen, if you can double click on that screen there, we're prompting them to like enter what details they want to put about the parent. And then here, this is where you're actually creating the parent opportunity.
Right.
Okay. All right, go ahead and hit cancel here.
Okay.
And then in the next step, you're updating
the originating.
Okay, so I think this might be where we can make a change.
Okay.
But before we do this, let's say cancel and go to the previous step. So in the previous step, this is where you're creating the parent record. So to make sure that the account is following, we want to make sure that we're populating the account ID field. So let's go into that create record. So you're hovering over there. And just let's confirm that the account is selected. So I see that is the first one. Go ahead and click anywhere on the blue text on the value side, right there. Okay, so this is saying the get current opportunity.account ID. Okay, that should work. So whatever opportunity is being created, it should be linked to that account. Now you're saying that you're not seeing that when it creates the parent?
It's not coming through.
Okay, so let's put a pin in that for a second. Once we get to the testing phase here. Let's go ahead and hit cancel. Okay, and then let's go to that update records that you have at the bottom there. Okay, so we're gonna update all opportunities where the ID is equal to the opportunity from get current opportunity. Go ahead and click on the blue text on that there, just so we can see the full field. Okay, so get current opportunity.id. Perfect. We want to set the parent opportunity equal to the opportunity ID from the new parent record. Okay, yeah, that looks good. So if we were to run through a debug of this using the debug link, let's see what happens here. And it should prompt you for a record ID. So let's grab that opportunity that you were looking at.
Yeah, I think I might have grabbed that. Where did it go? Here.
So I want to create a parent. Okay.
And this is what they fill in. I'll just put in a little thing in here.
It's looking good from when we looked at this last week.
Been working a lot on it.
Yeah, looks good. All right, so all done. Now over on the right side, let's take a look at what happened here. So if you can just, whoop. So before we do that, let's go back to the flow, the debug screen, so we can actually see what happened on the right side
Oh,
of
here,
that screen.
sorry.
So let's scroll up just a smidge for that the create records one. Go all the way to the top of that little, okay, right there. So we're going to set the account ID equal to 001. So that looks like an account ID. So that should be good. Now scroll all the way to the bottom and let's just see that update records, what it did. So we did ID equals to that, update this to this, 006. Okay. Result was 6xZQAS. 6xZQAS. Yeah, so that looks good. So let's actually take a look at the record now and see what happened. If you just go to that and refresh the screen, what happened there? And I didn't notice if we ran that in rollback mode or not. So that'll be the next thing that we look if that didn't work.
Oh, look at that. Why did it populate this time?
I think it's because you have 25 other people looking at you that it worked this time. So,
but that's amazing. Maybe it's not working through the button.
yeah, let's give that a try.
Sense?
Yeah, let's click on it and see what happens. Okay, now one sec here.
Yes.
Let's actually do. If you can jump back into your flow before you do this.
Okay.
Yeah, so from right here, go ahead and click on the manager tab right there. So are we passing in the record ID into this flow from the record that we're currently looking at? So I would expect to see a record or a record ID variable somewhere on this.
I think so.
I think we talked about this, and I think Sandy, you mentioned, okay, the capital R record ID, that should work perfectly fine. And if you click on that record ID variable, and you have available for input there, or for, input. Okay. No, that looks good. Okay, so yeah, I'm sorry. Let's go back to your test and actually do it through the button and see what happens.
Blame me for this?
What's that?
It sounds like Bill's trying to blame me for this.
No, well, I still think it's the capital R, but I'm not gonna say anything. Let's see.
All right. So I should have used a different record, shouldn't I have?
No, that should be okay. If you hit refresh here,
Okay.
I mean, it should do it for you, but let's just see if you click refresh. What was the name that you gave that parent opportunity that you created?
Parent, I believe.
Okay, so let's do this. Click on your opportunities tab, and let's just see if an opportunity got created, but just not linked to that account that we're looking at. What were we saying about performance?
Yeah.
And if so these are recently viewed.
So it would be this one, I assume.
All right. So it looks like it got created, but it didn't. I feel like it just didn't have a link to the previous opportunity. So I feel like there's something going on with that record ID thing. So just for fun, can you do me a favor and click on that variable name, that record ID? And let's click on the little pencil next to the record ID. And let's see if we can change that to a lowercase r. I don't think that this can't be the issue, but let's just do it just for fun here. Record ID, we don't have like double I's or anything in there. Okay. All right. So go ahead and save as, activate, and let's give this a whirl.
I am wrong. I just found the actual Salesforce article on Salesforce. It says that record ID, you have to use that name specifically with the lowercase.
Oh. Okay, let's go ahead and activate that before you click anywhere else.
Okay.
And let's go and go back to your opportunity that we're working with. But just for fun, because we changed the flow, go ahead and refresh the screen. After you click into an opportunity and then go ahead and refresh just to make sure it's getting the up-to-date button.
There you go. Should I pull another one?
Yeah, anyone, that one that you had is perfectly fine.
Oh, that's already apparent. All right, let's go back to Alvin. All right, and then start the flow.
Yep, let's do it.
Parent. Selected parent, then.
Yeah, look at the layout of this form. It's nice. There you go. I think that's what it was. That capital R.
Yay.
Sorry.
Yay, wonderful. Thank you.
Well, here's the thing, Sandy. I think that there are certain circumstances where the capital R would be just fine. And Nancy, if it's okay, I'm gonna take over sharing for 1 sec.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think there are certain circumstances where that capital R would be perfectly fine. If you had created a flow, screen-based flow, and put it onto the layout, right? Where when you go into the Lightning App Builder and you drag the flow component over, and then there's that little checkbox that says pass the record ID into this variable. It doesn't matter what you call that thing. You can call it squirrel, and you can still check that box and pass in the record ID. So in that case, capital R, I don't think it would matter. I think where the issue is that when you're using a Lightning action to invoke a flow, you don't get that option to select what do you want to pass into the variables. So that's where I think the default under the record ID with just the capital I think that's where it matters, that it's case sensitive. So some cases it doesn't matter. In that specific case, it absolutely matters.
Well, that's a huge lesson learned for me that will make a difference in a lot of flows in the future. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any questions on that before we move forward? All right. So I see a hand up from Emmanuel.
Yes. Hi, Bill. Hi, everyone. This is more of I'm trying to figure out I don't know, maybe it's simple, maybe not, I'm not sure, but I have a queue and I have a few select few of users in that queue. So I created a public group and added that public group to the queue. The problem I'm having here is that based on the role hierarchy, if certain users are way above the on the hierarchy, they are included in the queue, and the reason for membership is the manager of queue member. It's a Salesforce thing I wasn't aware of until recently. Problem here is that due to the sensitivity of the data records, my client doesn't want these other users, even though they are high on hierarchy, they are not supposed to see the records. I'm wondering if there's a workaround that, if anybody has any ideas.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me just say that back to you to make sure I understand what you're trying to do here. So you created a queue that you want to be able to assign records to and whatnot. The members of the queue are based on a public group, but the issue is that if you had just 3 people in that public group that get added to the queue, what it's doing is it's actually granting access to not only those 3 members, but basically everybody above those 3 members in the role hierarchy. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Does anybody have any thoughts on this or any ideas before I fumbled my way through it? Okay. Let's fumble away here. So I'm going to share my screen. So let's start out with queues. I feel like this is one of those things that unless you're working in like Service Cloud, not a lot of people work on this. But if you just type in queue, you'll see an option here for queues. So if I go to the queues, I can create a new queue and call this lead queue. And I can say that I want to be able to have leads be a part of this queue. And as far as queue members, this is where you can select either users, public groups, or anything else. Now, yeah, I don't think I have any groups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add myself here for a second. I'm going to save this. And let's actually go and create a public group. So if we go to our public groups, we should be able to create a new group. I'm just going to keep it simple and call this queue.
While you're doing that, is public groups one of those ones that you have to turn on to create?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I can't remember.
I feel like that's a pretty standard thing. Okay, now here's the question, Emmanuel. When you look at this in your public group, is this checked in your case?
I unchecked it, so that's not checked. I did some research, and apparently, even if that is unchecked, it's those members still have access to the queue. Also to add context, it's a custom. The only reason why we're going this route is we built a custom object so we can accommodate that, uncheck the grant hierarchy option.
Okay, so I'm going to remove me. Public groups, queue group. Okay, so in your public group, you have that unselected.
So-
I'm wondering then in the sharing settings, I believe that there's a similar checkbox there as well.
Yeah.
Right. So if we edit this.
So for standard objects, you cannot uncheck it beside just custom objects.
Okay, and in your case, it is a standard
Custom
object or custom object?
Custom object.
Custom object. So would you be able to uncheck that box, and does that have any effect?
Yeah, it's unchecked. It's still giving access to those other users.
Curious that when you created this initially, was that box checked or unchecked when it was first created?
When you create the object,
When you created the public group and you created the queue, was that checkbox for the custom object checked or unchecked at that time?
it's checked. It
Okay.
was checked.
Because I wonder if it might have something to do with like sharing recalculation or something like that. That might be an issue. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I have a great answer for you. I think we'd have to create a role hierarchy, move some users around, just to kind of test this out.
Okay. Yeah, I forget. I was wondering if anybody had come across it or.
Let's see if I even have a role hierarchy here. Set of roles. All right. So, for example, well, I'm going to have you all anyway. So, yeah. I don't think that we'll be able to set up a decent test of this in the next few minutes here. But I think what you were saying is that if you were to go into a lead record and you looked at sharing, you're seeing an entry in there like for manager of queue user or something like that. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I'm not sure if I have a great answer for that. I think we'd have to set up a decent kind of test environment to kind of work through that. But if you have the share via hierarchies unchecked on the public group, you have it unchecked on the object itself, I can't see any other reason why it would try to share through the hierarchies. The reason I mentioned about what it was when it was created is I just saw something. I'll have to try to dig it up to see if I can find the exact reference. But I saw something related to sharing recalculation issues. So I was just wondering, like, did it grant access? And then when you unchecked it, it didn't automatically recalculate sharing and who should see what. So if you did like a manual recalculation, now that it's, unchecked, if that would have any kind of effect on it. But let me try to dig up the reference for that. And if I can find it, I'll share that with you.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, sorry we couldn't be a little bit more definitive on the help there.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so we have about 3 minutes left. What I want to do before we kind of close things out here, I just want to make sure that if anybody that's on the call right now is not part of our Military Trailblazer office hours Slack workspace, this is the invitation for that. So please definitely join that workspace. And if you have any kind of questions outside of this call, or if you want to get details about the other sessions and things, that's a great place that you can find that information. And as soon as the recording is done processing, I'll go through, do my little thing, and then I'll post it into the open Q&A channel there. But that being said, does anybody have any last minute, less than 3 minute questions that they would like to go through? Otherwise, I think this might be a good place to pause.
I got a question. You're not going to solve it on this, but I just wonder if anybody had a similar issue with Experience Cloud. I was building my portfolio, and every time I use the tile menu, it goes and grabs an image from the asset library. The thing is, it will not show that image on my portfolio no matter what. I'm using the microsite template, the LWR, Lightning Runtime. If I pull an image from CMS on the other components, it works just fine. Like the tile component itself works just fine. The tile menu itself uses the asset library. I guess old technology, I don't know. It will not show that little image on the little tile menu. I worked like 2 days, reached out to, I don't know, 5 or 6 people. They can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. It's got something to do with my org specific. It's got to be, because I know one other person that's used the microsite template and his images show fine. Most of the other people use the Trailhead example and use customer service and
Yeah.
the Cypress theme. They don't run into what I'm running into because they don't have that Microsoft template. So I kind of like, did this to myself. I'm like, oh, let's try the LWR template, use the microsite, but it's been rough. I'm like, at this point, I'm just not gonna have any image on my tile menu. It's gonna be black and white.
Yeah, I just want to see if this is a quick answer. I'm just going into one of my Experience Cloud sites real quick. I could have swore there was something about like unauthenticated access to assets or something like that, like a setting.
Yeah, I clicked all that, managed to look at the share. Was initially not able to, it would only show the guest user profile or one user, but now it shows like the asset library has access to the image, the guest user profile has access to the image.
Yeah.
My profile has access to the image, just won't show it. It shows the tile menu, won't show the image on the tile menu. Same image will be shown in CMS, no problem.
Well, I'm gonna get ready to jump on my other call here. But what I'm gonna do is I'll see if I can look at my Experience Cloud site, and if I have if it's something obvious, I'll definitely send it your way. But otherwise, if you're kind of digging through this and you find an answer, definitely post it in the Slack just so we can take a look.
Okay.
All right. So my apologies, we couldn't get to that sooner, but I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will catch up next week. Thanks all.